Buckle up, because on the She's Got Drive podcast, you remember that your brilliance is your birthright. Welcome back to another episode of She's Got Drive. And as you can see, I am still away, but this week I am away on my work retreat. I'm in a beautiful place in Mexico and moving around to different pieces. But what is happening is I am focusing on my work from here to the end of the year. If you're waiting till October to look at your goals and figure out how you're going to achieve your annual goals by the end of the year, it's too late at that point. This is the time to pause, look at what you're doing and review what you're doing, and then plan out your strategy for the rest of the year. I can share with you, I think on a solo episode coming up, I'll share with you some of the things that I do, but this is an important aspect of growth and development. And I think I'd like, I talk about living your life by design, not default. I talk about living your dream life, you know that. And I talk about executing on your dream, which is the name of one of my women's programs. As if you're an OG She's Got Driver, then you would know that. So this is part of it. This is part of how you create the life that you want. You have to plan and strategize for those things. So here I am. I have the beauty of being in, the privilege of being in a beautiful space, but you can do it anywhere. So before I could afford to do this, I would find a coffee shop or an art gallery or a museum somewhere where I love to be. Like in London, it was the V&A. I take myself to some place where I could work that feels inspiring, and I would do my work there. So if that's you, if you haven't reviewed your goals, and some of you maybe think, I didn't even set goals in the first place, Shirley. Listen, even though, annually, most people set it in January, there's never a late time to set goals for your life, so start now. You can absolutely start now. So I wanted to share that with you, and isn't it just gorgeous out here. So I wanted to record this in this place. So the other thing I want to say is, if you are loving the show, can you do two things for me? Two things. The first thing I'd love you to do is to hit the share button in the podcast app, whether that's your Spotify app or your iTunes or your Google Play or wherever you listen, and share. Think about 2 or 3 women that are in your contact list and share the show with those 2 or 3 women. If you're getting value, make sure your other people get value, and we can grow this community of women who are going after living their life, their dream life, not their default life, and really executing on their dreams. So if you want to expand with me, the Women with Drive, then please share the show. And then the other thing I'd love you to do is head over to iTunes and rate and review the show too, because it makes a difference on the growth of the show and expanding what we're doing here. So this week episode, who do we have? We have Bronwyn Morgan. Now, Bronwyn Morgan owns her own drone company. Yeah, her own drone company. And so you're going to discover something here that was new for me. There's not many women moving in this space. There's certainly not many Black women moving in this space. So it's really great to hear her story about how she got into it. And what I love about bringing her to you, I love bringing all my guests to you, but one of the things I love about bringing her to you is bringing someone who's working in a space that is unusual, that is not the place where people even think about working, and then seeing how through her story, how you too could get access to it. But this is a business that's only going to grow because the demands are growing, of course. And the thing that's really surprising in this interview is just how much drones are used everywhere and in so many different ways that I didn't even understand at that point how much they were used. So there we are. I'm going to pass it on to Bronwyn, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye. Bronwyn, thank you so much for being willing to be a guest on She's Got Drive.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here with you, Shirley. This is fantastic.
So I'm excited to find out more about
you and your work, because I think I was saying to you before, I've literally never met anyone who does what you do.
Oh,
So,
wow.
like, really, can you share with my listeners, like, what is it that you do? And then we're going to get to how you came to be who you are and the company that you run.
Right. Well, thanks. I have two companies in this space. I have Xeo Air, and Xeo is an outsourced AI-based drone services, data analytics, and autonomous solution, primarily focused on inspection and mapping for infrastructure-based sectors, telecom, energy, and utilities. We also do catastrophe and disaster, as well as climate and environmental observation and civil infrastructure. So everything kind of in the infrastructure, critical infrastructure space, as well as climate, catastrophes, all these sectors that have adjacencies.
Give me an example. So when you say like a catastrophe emergency, like give me an example of something that happens and then you're called in to do what exactly?
Right. So we've created a mission management portal that allows customers in those sectors to be able to build missions, and we dispatch our pilots until we get to full autonomy. We will then just dispatch the drones. But in the meantime, so let's say it's a hurricane response, we would be called in post-disaster to assess damage of, it could be civil infrastructure, bridges, dams, roadways, for emergency purposes, also for analytics of the damage for private sector companies as well, utility companies, telecom companies, just to see where the repair needs to happen. So we would take everything from still images, high definition video, perhaps thermal, depending on, the situation. In some instances, perhaps LiDAR data. But it's all about the data and then the analytics so that the customer can make, the best business decisions that they need to make, whether it's immediate, an emergency from evacuation to, what repairs need to be made in the days, thereafter, to long-term trends over time when you start to look at, what has taken place in an area. Disaster after disaster after disaster. And that could be everything from urban planning to insurance companies. There's just so many different use cases.
Do they already have a contract with you? I mean, I'm sorry getting to the weeds, but I'm like, do they already have a contract with you, or are you on a list where someone's like, we've got an emergency, we're going to reach out to you? Like, how does that?
It could be both.
Okay.
It could be both. It could be a situation where we're pre-contracted, and most likely the contractors are on a list of companies that would be reached out to in the event of a disaster. Yeah. And that's pretty much how it works. All of our clients would be able to engage with us, usually through a contract. And that could, we also have a subscription model where somebody may only need us one time. They just may need us to do an inspection once, or it could be a situation where it's ongoing. We have a subscription program, but then we also have contracts for customers that have very unique needs, and we need to kind of upfront identify what those special needs are and pricing so that we can be at the ready when we're needed.
When did you start your drone? When did it begin? Like your passion for it?
My passion for aviation and aerospace started when I was a kid. I've always wanted to work in aviation and aerospace. I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and women couldn't fly fighters. When I left high school I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. That didn't come on until many years later, and so I went a different path altogether. During that time, I wanted to also become an aerospace engineer and maybe work at JPL, become an astronaut, and none of that actually happened. And so, as an adult after my corporate career, I had been an innovation consultant. And when drones came up as a civilian commercial opportunity, I thought, this is my chance. And the FAA created a special training certification for professional drone pilots. And so I studied and, got that certification, and since then have become an FAA drone pro and also an FAA safety rep on the FAST team, the FAA safety team. And, I get a chance now to live my dream in aviation and aerospace, even though I'm not occupying the vehicle. I do get to fly it from the ground.
Right. So how long ago was that? When did you?
I think I started the path in 2017 and took the exam in like 2018. I think that's about right. Yeah, and I'm now a member of the Civil Air Patrol and get to do so many cool things in this space. And we started Xeo in 2019, and then COVID happened. And so here we are now in 2022 working on building the company. And hopefully everybody, stays healthy so that we can continue to engage with clients who are actually there and answering the phone. But yeah, drones drones are here to stay. This is definitely, part of the future of aviation and aerospace, and the applications will be broad.
So there's still a huge amount of opportunity and a big market expansion that's coming, because we've only really like scratched the surface.
You nailed it. We've just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
We've got so much coming on. We're an inspection and mapping company, but you've got drone delivery, drones for, medical use, heavy lift drones for cargo, and then eventually passenger drones. So your ride share will now become aerial versus just ground based. But yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, so I don't know if you've heard of urban air mobility, but basically, your Uber will now be in the air versus on the ground. So larger drones, uncrewed aerial vehicles will carry people from destination to destination, mostly in a short range, geography, rural, suburban, city, airport to home, from likely vertiports and skyports. Yeah. So all of that's coming online as well.
Do you mean like I land at O'Hare and I get a drone home and it's just landed at Lincoln Park because it's near my house? Is that what you mean?
That probably will become a reality before long. Yeah.
What?
It's already being tested. The vehicle manufacturers are already in play. Funding is already being funneled that way.
That's wild.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. The Jetsons becomes a reality. So I work with much smaller drones than that. That's going to become a reality as well.
Wow. That is wild to me.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. The future is going to be really unique and interesting on so many levels.
And then if you think about, that's like you said, the bigger drones, but the size the smaller drones, which is kind of like up watching, taking videos, dropping, delivery, all that type of stuff. What's the future for us in the everyday?
Yeah. You'll be seeing drones flying around pretty consistently, if you see a drone doing an inspection of a telecom tower, construction site, surveying land. Our agriculture uses drones very heavily already. You'll see drones. And then of course delivery drones you'll be seeing those flying overhead as well. But a lot of the
packages?
Packages, your Amazon will come now to you versus you having to have, somebody come to your door. And it really depends on where you live. One of the biggest challenges we have now is last mile delivery. And how do we get it from, that last mile from either the distribution center or a local distribution drop, or it might even be able to come directly to your home. It just depends on how the infrastructure is set up that will allow for that. Because there's safety involved, and there's a lot of work going on right now to ensure that the airway is safe for all of this new aerial traffic that is going to take place.
Because of course it's already, we can't see how many like planes are in the air at any one time, but we know it's like heavily populated, and that's why
absolutely
the traffic control is such a critical. So what does that mean when you've got all these additional commercial airlines essentially of like competing for space? How high do they fly?
We have a limit of 400 feet above ground level unless we are inspecting a tower that is taller than that.
Okay.
So we would be able to go to the maximum height of that tower plus 400 feet with proper airspace authorization. But on average, 400 feet AGL or above ground level.
Which is why we can be able to see it with the net. Obviously, we're able to see
it. Pretty much. 400 feet still pretty high, but you'd be able, and depending on the size of the drone. And you probably won't be able to hear them because 400 feet is still fairly high.
Right.
But they could be flying at lower. If they're delivering, they would be, dropping down below that, obviously.
Wow.
Wow is right.
Really. I think what's so interesting, because it's not something that I think about, because it's only because now we're in this conversation, is now like, Oh God,
I know.
Through this, and it makes me confused how much of technology is moving forward, and we have no real idea what's coming because it's not in our mind currently, or we're not gonna keep tracking it. Oh my God, that is.
Yeah, it's gonna be different.
Insane to me, but I imagine it's really exciting for you because it is,
and it's changing so incredibly fast. I mean, every week there's new developments, both on the development side of equipment and services, and then working with the FAA on how do you make sure all of this works together well, and the regulations and the certifications of the equipment and of the people.
Right.
So yeah, there are a lot of moving pieces here.
What made you decide to start this particular company? Of all the avenues that you could have gone down, why this avenue versus something else?
Well, when I started, I said I had two companies. My other company is called Airversity, and it's a professional drone pilot academy. Okay. So I do both training with one company and consulting, and then the services with Xeo Air. I really felt that for this industry, the model was really around services and providing clients with an outsource opportunity who don't want to carry all of this on their books, the innovation on their, on their books as well, because to keep up with this, the investment is going to get, more intense and more intense. The regulations, it's a lot to manage. More aircraft on an ongoing basis, people, skill sets. And that's a lot. And so we wanted to make it easy for companies that just needed to say, you know what, we want to outsource it. And the reason I chose the sectors I did is because, and this is before the infrastructure bill and all that, it's just because both infrastructure, climate, and catastrophe are all three things that are in the news constantly. Right. And I want to make sure that infrastructure systems stay up and running. I think as globally, and not just as a nation, but we've seen what it's like when we are short-staffed and when people are out, and how do things get done, during COVID. While it wasn't necessarily about, electricity going out or telecom going out, we really did create a whole new way to live and recognize, like, how does this happen if that doesn't work? How would this happen if this happens? These people are out. And so I recognize that, we do have a need for this. And, we're getting into autonomous capabilities as well, because, I know that eventually us behind the controller, we're already going away. You don't need the pilot standing on the ground with the drone. Except in very unique situations, everything can be done autonomously, especially for infrastructure that's in remote areas and hard to reach areas. Right. And we just want to make that process a lot easier.
I think about, this is so good, interesting, because I think about, I don't know why this is coming up for me, but I'm thinking about, because you talked about disasters, I'm also thinking about areas of the world where it's really difficult to get services to those areas or to build infrastructure.
Yeah.
So as a way of getting access to those areas using drones to deliver material, and I'm thinking of developing nations.
Yeah.
How do we? How do you bring to those areas which are just difficult to get into? Big, to make a difference.
Oh yeah.
That's what's coming to mind. I don't know. It's kind of right.
Drones are being.
I was working with a client last week, which is thinking about some of these challenges. So that's what's coming to mind. But I think how technology, like drone technology, can be so helpful.
Absolutely.
In addressing needs like that, planning for, and you can really address that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Being able to do that, to get to those places. The biggest challenge for us as an industry right now is battery life and fuel cells, because we've got a limited amount of time in the sky just because the technology hasn't caught up yet. So you're seeing companies that are creating drones that run on hydrogen. You do have eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing, so that you do get longer range, and there's gas powered. So as long as you've got the right strategy for your power source, then you could reach locations that are very, slightly further away than others. But that's something that the, industry is working on now. How do we sustain ourselves aerially with long-term fuel alternatives that allow us to do that. Because of course, the bigger the battery, the bigger the drone needs to be to carry the battery and the rest of your payload. So these are all things that people are thinking about. But to answer your question, absolutely, this will help, especially cargo drones when it comes to delivering larger packages to people in areas of need or during a disaster. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Coast Guards use them to rescue people at sea by dropping down, lifesavers and life vests. But you could be somewhere and you need medical equipment to hold you over until you can actually reach emergency services, or emergency services could come in one of those larger passenger drones, like an ambulance drone that, either has one attendant on it or, puts you in there and it's autonomously flown, and then it could get you to the nearest, medical support.
How many Black women are moving in this space?
Yeah, there aren't as many of us yet as there will be. I probably personally know of about 12 of us. There are more. Just don't know them all. The women in general are growing in this field big time. Every time I go to a conference, I'm seeing more and more women in leadership roles, more and more women who are chief pilots. Iris Automation has a chief pilot, Cheryl. UPS has a chief pilot, and I can't remember her name, who's a woman. In Chicago, you've got Sharon Rossmark, who runs Women in Drones, which is a global organization, who's a Black female dedicated to women in the industry. So I would say, probably 12 to 20 of us in the U.S., at least, that I know of off the top of my head. But that number will be growing significantly. How
are women gravitating towards?
I think just like anything, tech period, these are the careers of the future, and people, all different walks of life are embracing it. And, it is primarily male, that's kind of goes hand in hand with tech, but you've got women, who are coding and engineers. It's just, these are the jobs that the future demands, and people are getting excited about this. It's like, wow, this is a completely different alternative to what I had even considered. Yeah, this is the exciting part.
I can see that. It's like, just even me, I'm really in the wonderment of it, when as I listen to you share about it. So when you think about, what was your life before this work? So what were you said you've worked in corporate, but what were you doing?
Yeah.
How did you begin your career?
Well, I started off at Procter & Gamble. I was in sales and, in sales management, and then got to work on some cool upstream innovation projects, more strategic brand development and product development work, but still always representing sales. And then I spent many years at the Coca Cola company, also in sales and high level responsibilities. And then had a really cool job where I got to work out of in and out of Silicon Valley and other tech locations, vetting new technology for the company. And that really started to kind of turn the wheels again for me, of my love for innovation. And after I left corporate, did another entrepreneurial venture for a while, and then the market crashed. And then went back to work in a couple of different roles. I worked at the university level, and then I became an innovation consultant, and was working with Fortune 500 companies on innovation strategies. Was looking at and touching all kinds of new innovation, you name it. Then drones really started to make a mark, and I was like, this is it. So left that behind and jumped into this. Here I am.
Wow. What was it about because that's quite from sales to innovation to drones. It's not an obvious connection.
No.
So it's not like you're like, I was an engineer. I was, you know what I mean?
Right.
I was a mechanical engineer, and I decided to, that would feel like, so what was it that really was messaging?
I think it was that spark
there?
from being a kid. I think it was that spark, and I'm like, this is it. And then my business experience when it came to the company part, running the company, that, obviously that speaks for itself, but the transition, and I tell people that nothing about aviation or aerospace is intuitive. You just don't say, this is how that works. You gotta know it, and then there's regulations that are just regulations are regulations. You try, you practice, you fail. Working on building a startup. So startups weren't a new thing for me. It's as much of a challenge as it is exciting. And so, all the aviation stuff I'm having to learn. Even though I had a love for it and I had some understanding, it wasn't my core career, the leadership, but I think more importantly, it was being open to something that I have passion for.
Right.
On days when I'm tired or I might not really I'm like, how does this work? It's the passion that kind of keeps you pushing through so that you can get it. And then I surround myself with really amazing, smart people who have deep experience in a lot of areas that I don't. And cause I'm like, I can't know all of this, every little piece of everything. So yeah, I've got some experts on my team that help, but I was able to jump in and the FAA, I was selected to become a drone pro and an FAA safety rep. I've been picking up pretty quickly and being a voice in the industry around safety and operations. And I always believe that the best way to learn something is to teach. And hence, I started Airversity. So it's you gotta, you just, and it's repetition. You just keep looking at it and figuring it out. And the cool thing about it, Shirley, is that, the industry is so new. It's the one time in my career where unless you were, deep aviation experience, it's new for everybody.
Right.
And even for those folks, I know people who were fighter pilots, people who were commercial pilots, people who were engineers, they might get this part of it, but the rest of it is like, this is all new for all of us.
Yeah.
And there's so many components to this. It's not just the drone. It's the communication aspect of how the drone communicates. It's the photogrammetry and it's the data processing and analytics. Cause at the end of the day, for me, it's just a tool to collect data. And that's what the drone is for. It's really, we're a data company. We just get the data from the sky. So as much as we're, about drones, we're really, most importantly, what the customer wants is they want the data.
So they can make their decisions about what they need to do.
Yeah, that's all the drone is for. It's about data collection and the sensors that you're using.
So one of the questions I always ask my guests is like, how do you define success? So in terms of your life, how would you define success? And maybe in terms of like this journey that you're on in this passion project that you've got, how would you define success in terms of that?
The first one I think is, am I delivering something that provides value to an end user? When I hear feedback that, hey, you guys, for Rockstars, you did a fantastic job. This has helped us. Or this new idea that you're thinking about. I was on a call recently with a customer that we're targeting and they were just like, okay, so wait a minute. When are you going to have that ready? Are you going to sell those? We'll be first in line to buy them. And I'm like, ooh. And so those kinds of things, I think for me is like, this is success because people want what we're creating. The second part of that is how do I feel? Every day when I'm doing this, do I feel energized? Running a startup is so hard. And even, like I said, on those days when you have no motivation, it really is about the passion and the discipline that kind of keeps it going because it's just like, yeah, I love this stuff, but I'm tired. It's hey, I've mastered that. I've learned this. And not only have I learned it, I'm teaching other people and I've mastered it. I've delivered against what my value proposition is. So I'm mastering the understanding of the product and I'm mastering the delivery of the solution. And then I think, the last one is, and not quite yet, but does it deliver for me a lifestyle that allows me to have the balance that I eventually seek? And, in that, I can spend more time teaching and giving back to the community, but also more time with my family and more time for myself and to get to do the things that I want to do. And so that's coming. We're not there yet, but, that to me is success.
What's your ultimate vision for yourself then?
Yeah.
In your life?
20 years ago, if I'd have started this company, it'd be very different. But I want to build it up. We've got some exciting things that we're developing that, will really be a challenge and I'm ready for it. But, I'd like to get the company to a point where people are knocking on the door saying, hey, we think we want to buy that.
Right.
That would be great, to get a couple of, funding rounds under our belt and really have a presence in the market with, market share and then, say, okay, is it time yet? Or, what do I do? How do I pick an eventual predecessor for this? That would be, long term. And I was just talking to my head of dev earlier. And he said, yeah. And then, you're going to do something else. And I'm like, yeah, I do have another company in the wings in the back that is just kind of sitting back there waiting. And I said, I might, but I've got some other things I'd like to do eventually, but we'll see how that goes. But I'll be at the reins for a while.
When you think about, what makes you, like there are so many people who, number one, start working for themselves, but they're not really starting building companies. The majority, particularly of Black entrepreneurship, is solopreneurs. They're not building businesses, building firms, right? And there's certainly, as you said, a handful really of Black women and women of color in the field. So what is it about you that has you be doing this? What do you think what are the aspects of you that has you be the one who's
I don't definitely think I'm just the one, but
no, but in terms of this expression of it, it's you. I mean, it has other women have their expression, other people have their expression. Instead of your expression of what is it about you?
Well, I think it's tenacity for sure. I've had that my whole life. Ambition, definitely. Tenacity, probably even before ambition. But, and I do think it's just the years of business experience, that I've had that helped me think about this as a business and not just as a fad or something I'm excited about. But how do we really, work to engage customers? And it's tough, there aren't we were just talking, there aren't many people that look like us that are knocking on doors, to provide services. People are like, oh, where did this person come from? But, I'm again, the tenacity, I'm just going to keep coming. If not, we'll pivot and we will find the right partners and customers. And I think that's what it takes to run a business of any kind, because nobody is, especially when Black women receive less than 1% of all VC funding. And so, and I'm pretty upfront when I talk to VCs and I'm like, hey, have you invested in women of color before? If not, I don't want to waste your time if, you've met your quota or if you've not and you've got to take me jumping through hoops. I'm not interested in that. I'd like for you to vet this based on what it is and listen to me, because oftentimes I think, I can't speak for every Black woman, but I know for myself, it's not what I'm saying. They're listening for what I'm not saying. And I'm like, you're not even hearing me. You are measuring me through some lens that that's your lens. It's not mine. So I can't see through it. And I think it's the go where you want it mentality for me too. Finding customers as well as, funding sources where you want it. And people want to hear from you. They want to work with you and they are open to you and they give you opportunities and they're listening to you. And they see, your vision, this kind of Tony Stark future that I'm working on. It's tiring, but you just keep going.
Keep pushing.
Strategically, you keep going.
It reminds me, because Arlen Hamilton talks about, she talks about the underestimated.
Yeah.
The people of color, LGBTQ community, we're just the underestimated, this huge talent, and the money's going elsewhere. And so that her focus just purely being on those groups of new businesses. I just think, hopefully she's been able to raise the in the VC community, just raise the conversation to a different level.
Yeah, absolutely.
What that she's been able to do, but she's one person trying to make a difference in a big.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of hers, and I applaud her for what she's done, and she puts it out there, I straight with no chaser, and I love that about her because that's what it takes. And Arlen's presence she's inspirational, but she's made a difference
Right.
for a lot of founders. I've had a chance to talk to her team on occasion on different topics. And, I love what she's doing. It's like we came, and she has a quote, I hope I get it right. We came for the cake, not for the crumbs. And I love that. And, I believe that. Our clients eventually will be global. Right now we're focused on the U.S. because that's where we're currently certified and all of our pilots are. But we will be looking to move beyond the shores of the United States for other opportunities.
Fantastic. And she's got drive. So what's your main driver in life? What motivates you?
I think it's just my own bar of, can I do this? And I'm an only child. And so I've always just created my own world, my own space, and, often been underestimated. And I just keep jumping in there's always a bar for you that's set by others, but I just create my own, and people are like, what are you doing? How did you get into that? And I'm just like, you've not really spent any real time getting to know me if you are still so shocked by that.
Yeah, if you're still asking me that question, then
I'm like, have you ever asked me what I liked? And, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing what I used to do?
Right.
But, it's just kind of setting my own bar for myself and continuing to leap it and learning, and just pushing the envelope. I mean, that's what we're really, for me, that's what I'm here. How do I push the envelope of my own self, actualization?
Right.
I think Wayne Dyer says, don't die with your music in you. And I want to be able to say, you know what? I did everything I wanted to do. Right. It's time to move on to the next experience. I did that. And, with the suit that I was given. And I think as a Black woman, it's nice to be a pioneer in a space and work to change the face of things. And so that's my drive.
That's beautiful. When you were speaking, I just kind of imagine like you have these arcs, and as you come to the end of that arc, a new arc just kind of arises, or a new vision arises on the horizon, and then you're going for that. And so there's never a point where there isn't a new arc showing up for you. Because
it doesn't have to be as big as a startup, there can be other arcs that are less tangible, but that are nonetheless equally as important and challenging.
And what's the biggest challenge that you've had in your career?
Yeah. Oh, in my career. I would say, being, one of the first in the door in different places, and, dealing with all that comes with that. The questions, the being looked over, and then being pushed and promoted at times, and still some questions. That, that's challenging when it's like, I should probably be doing that by now. And then you look around and you're like, but how did these people get to do that? Right. And how does that work? I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges.
What's your strategy for coping or dealing with?
You try not to internalize it. You can't help it. But you then you perform. And then you make a choice to move on. You don't have to linger in spaces, kind of going back to be where you want it. You don't have to linger in spaces where you're not wanted. But you can perform, build incredible relationships with your tribe that is in those spaces, and leave your mark. And then you continue to move on, because where you're supposed to be, and I always say, I don't always say, but the water always finds its level, and you will find the next best place for yourself. But you also do it strategically. You don't need to hop from lily pad to lily pad every week, but you stand up to the challenge. And I think now more than ever, people are empowered to speak up and out. As a Gen Xer, my environment was still a little bit more, you're a bit more cautious. You don't want to step out too far. But now, you can step up and challenge the system very openly. And we did then as well, challenge it as a woman, challenge it as a Black person. But at the end of the day, it's about perform. Are you learning? And for me, am I learning and am I performing and am I delivering in my role? That has been, very important to me. And I think that has helped me cope.
Yeah, it's interesting because the being underestimated, leads to being challenged, being questioned, and still, as you said, managing not internalizing the conversation, because it's such a repeated experience over the lifetime of a career, right? So
it is.
That really takes something to not start to believe the messaging that's coming at you, and to still keep rising, and be so getting that, when you say like not staying where you're not wanted, like really understand, like, I have choices. Yeah, exactly. I don't have to be here. It's so empowering. Even when you choose to stay. Like, exactly. What being is, I'm not like staying because I have to. I'm staying because I'm choosing to. Right. And I have absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Right. And then bringing up people behind you so that they can continue to fill that pipeline. That's mentoring and hiring and promoting if you're, a manager, but ensuring that you are building a pipeline, because that's the kind of network that then starts to make a huge difference. Mm-hmm. 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 One of the questions that I ask is, like, wisdom that, like, I'm curious about wisdom that you gained from an elder woman. It could be your mom, it could be an aunt, it could be a grandparent. But something that has stayed with you, something that a mantra maybe that you live by, or an insight that kind of resonates with you. Is there anything that comes to mind? I call it the what mama used to say question. It's, I don't know if it's necessarily one mantra, but I think it's just one, education, continuing to grow your own knowledge base, formally as well as informally. And, this belief that you can do anything. And I know that sounds trite, but it is true. I heard that from certain people as I was growing up in my family. Kind of no limit thinking is what provides a base of being. Mm-hmm. And, and it's so important when you're young to hear certain things, because it does stay with you and it forms your philosophy of how you live. And even in, with some of the biggest challenges that I've had, it was like, I can overcome this and I can do anything. As I grew older, I recognized that it may not turn out to be in the original form that I thought, but it can come to fruition if I choose it. I might choose to not do that. And nobody can really stop you. They really can't. They can try, but you can push your way through. That's really great. I mean, it comes back to the word tenacity, actually, that you used earlier. That's one of the ways that you describe yourself, and you can see how that's connected to the messaging that you got as you grew up. Like, you can just keep going and get on with it. Mm-hmm. If there were some advice for other women who wanted to, like, get into the space that you're in, what advice would you give them? Oh, come on in. And, get your understanding of where you might want to fit in the industry, because there's so many needs. But, learn the parts of aviation that are interesting, learn the parts of the technology that you feel, is it hardware design? Is it software development? Is it piloting? What is it? What part of this, do you want to be in? Come and get your certification and learn how, mechanically it works. Just start networking and connecting with people in the industry. If you are, wanting to work somewhere for a while, if you're younger, to learn some things, great. If you want to be an entrepreneur, the field is wide open. So come on in and don't listen to the naysayers. If I hear one more person tell me, oh, well, this and that part is this and this is hard, and I'm like, yeah, so what? It's like, yeah, everything's hard. So yeah, I'm here to help make it less hard. Right. So I can look like me and do hard things. And I'm like, come on in. This is a field that's wide open. Yeah, and growing. I mean, it's just
We're just, as we start just scratching the surface.
Yeah, the potential is incredible. Like, for you to be at this stage in the journey, and then see what opens up. And I think it's certainly for one for us to like pay attention to and watch. And it's like, I know I'm now alert to it, so I'll be,
looking out, look up.
Yeah, looking up and seeing. Yeah. And I think the thing about technology, sometimes we could be so, it's because we're like, I don't understand that. You know, it's kind of like an attitude like, I don't understand what that means. So we just don't even engage in it. And really, we've got to keep track. I think it's so important to keep track of what's happening.
It's hard because there's a lot going on. I mean, across so many different aspects of technology. I mean, it does, it's great to take a read of, some of the tech magazines just to kind of give yourself an understanding of like, you don't have to know, a deep dive into everything, because some things are for, civil consumption, and other things are like, that's kind of a behind the scenes thing. Right. But it's good to know what's going on in science and in technology, because it's all moving so quickly. I'll read them. I'm like, I didn't know that was happening. And it at least helps me build my awareness so that I can tap into that, or at least know that it's coming.
Have you got time for one more question?
I sure do.
Yeah. I'm curious about like, how you take care of yourself because I imagine, as you said, startups are hard. It's stressful. If you're dealing with like supporting organizations around emergencies and things like that, the importance of the work that you're doing, how do you take care of yourself as you do your work?
I teach meditation also. And so my mindfulness training, is a big part of what I do. And I try to keep one space more sacred, where, like I don't allow shoes in my bedroom, and, my candles, and, my evening ritual for myself. I have a lot of family care responsibility as well, and having some time to steal away. And, I'm glad it's summer now, because I love going to the park, doing my walks, and my time just to sit and think. I don't want to listen to music. I just want to sit and just look at the trees. That, and now, an occasional spa day. I just start getting my nails done again. I don't know how long that'll last, because I'm always out doing, touching stuff. But that has been, that's critical. Just these small moments, for me. And my quiet time is, I have to have that. More so than anything else.
Right.
And then I just start collecting Funko Pop little characters. You'd know them if you see them. The first one I bought was, which one is this one? Oh, from Star Trek, Lieutenant Uhura.
Like, they like with the things with the big heads?
Yeah.
Oh, you can see the Japanese stores. Type thing.
Yeah. So I just started collecting those. I got that one. Then my second one I just bought was Bruce Lee. I don't know how many of these.
My son's got some, because my son's into kind of Japanese stuff, and there's a store. There's a store in Chicago called Rotofuji. And they do that type. They sell some of that stuff, and So okay, cool. So
that's like my other little vice, and now that I think COVID is kind of balanced, knock on wood, I'll be kind of going back to my gym now. Feel fairly safe, and get back into my weightlifting. So but you got to have some time to quiet your mind, and some time for your body.
Yeah. Well, I've been back at my gym it's a very small gym, and it's it's a small gym.
See, that's great.
And so I go at 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock. So it's very limited how many people are in the gym. And sometimes it's just me. Yeah. Really, occasions with me.
5:30 is just hard for me.
Oh, is it? I'm a morning person. So.
I am too, but it's like I've done the morning workout thing, and I'm like, and if I can maybe make like a 7 or 7:30, but boy, 5:30. I know people that do it at 4:30, and I'm like, you are just a beast.
I go 4:30 because that's an early wake up. I mean, I can get up and then leave, and then 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then I'm in, and then
You're done.
About my day, I'm done. If I don't do that, then and then I know that traffic's
true.
You know, I'm just like, I can time it. I'm not seeing traffic on the way back. I just like, it sets up my day. But I know the difference between when I'm regularly in the gym and I'm doing that and when I'm not.
You can tell.
It's just, you can completely tell.
You can.
You can completely tell. So self-care. Let's end on the self-care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much.
Absolutely.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of She's Got Drive, and listening to another woman who really represents a woman with drive and represents the dream life that we are all aspiring to, which is having the life that you truly want and that you deserve. So I loved Bronwyn. As I said, I love that she's operating and moving in a space that is so different, and that she's creating and leading the charge here. So if that's you, if you think, actually, I'd never even considered that as a possibility, there you are, there you have it. What other kind of businesses that you might have had a thought about and you've just like decided that I can't be that because I don't move in that space, or I don't know people in that space, or I don't even know if I can own a business in that space, or the barriers to entry because it costs so much to start a business like that. If that's you, don't be stopped by that. You know, be inspired by Bronwyn's story and then go after it. The other thing I want to remind you of is, as I said, to share the show, rate and review the show on iTunes, and follow me on Instagram for more life hacks and life tips that I'm sharing there regularly. I'm keeping it and sharing there, and on LinkedIn. She's Got Drive is produced by Cassandra Voltalina. The song is by Satoria Key and it's called Back to Me, which is a really inspiring song. I'm so proud that she has allowed us to use this song in this season. Going forward, She's Got Drive. You can download Back to Me at she'sgotdrive.com. There's a link that will send you to the page where you can download it. It's only $1 for the song. Can we please support Satoria rather than just listen to it for free? Can you buy the song? $1. Just buy the song and support her. An amazing artist, and she does live shows. We're going to have her on the show soon, so she's booked to be interviewed. I'm really excited to find out more about Satoria and her music career and what she's up to. Remember, we are building a community of women who are going after their best life. So keep driving towards your dreams. And until next time, I'll see you. And I'm going to head back to my work retreat. Bye.